It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Devin Little, and this is the Hockey Writers Grindline, the Red Wings roundtable for the hockey writers. For the past 5 years, the Grindline has been a weekly written column for the hockey writers, and now we're here to talk some Red Wings hockey. We're excited for another opportunity to discuss the latest Red Wings news, rumors, and strategy with the Hockeytown faithful. So, including myself, let's introduce our version of Chris Draper, Kirk Maltby, and Darren McCarty, starting with my alternate captain here on the grind line, Pat Brown. How's it going, Pat?
It is going wonderful. Loving a little post trade line high that we're post trade deadline high that we're still kind of riding a little bit, and really enjoying being here with you. And who else is that here that I see, Devin?
Yes, let's address the elephant in the room. Coming back to us for this the special trade deadline episode of the Grind Line is Mr. Ian McNaughton. Welcome back, buddy. Good to see you. How have you been?
It's been all right here. Again, I'm based in Vancouver, and you guys asked about me coming on last week before the actual trade deadline, and at that point there hadn't been much happening. Like, I think the Nemeth trade happened by then, and then we saw the Merrill trade on Saturday, and I was like, oh, okay, it should be a relatively easy, quick show. And then Anthony Manta was traded on Monday, and it was just like, okay, we got a lot to talk about. Like, I have to be on the show, and we have to talk about I have to make some time to talk about this with you guys.
Yeah, can't really go on about Nemeth for a fourth, right? So before we really dive into today's agenda, I do want to give a quick shout out and a quick happy birthday to our other member of the Grind Line here, Kyle Knopp. It is his birthday. So if you're watching this, go ahead and tell him happy birthday down there in the comments. Happy birthday, Kyle. Looking forward to grinding it out with you again next week. All right. So before we talk about the trades, we have to talk about the week that was. So I am going to start with you, Pat, on this one. I know that you put out our weekly series for this week, and you had a lot of great things to say because, well, quite frankly, there were a lot of good things that happened for the Red Wings this week. Why don't you share some thoughts on the past week that was for the Red Wings?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've got a lot of thoughts, and I'll try to keep it brief, but long story short, it was a good week. In fact, I would say it was a great week. The Red Wings played above 500 for the week, going 2-1, including, and I called it out in the article, it was deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say, because after getting smoked by the exact same score, 7-1 against Nashville, they come back out and then they sweep Carolina, of all teams, in a 2-game set. So they did that. Their first win with Carolina everything was pretty normal. And then, then the trade deadline hit. And one of the things that I kind of likened this year's trade deadline to is I used to, as a kid, really look forward to the trade deadline because I wanted to know who the Red Wings were going to bring in to help them win the cup. One that really sticks out in my mind, sorry, Ian, I'm almost positive you weren't born yet, was when Chris Chelios was dealt to the Red Wings. And that was 99, I believe. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it just because it was so exciting. And there were so many mixed feelings because at that time he was with the Hawks and we obviously didn't like him. But, man, he became a Detroit favorite pretty quick. And that is what this deadline almost felt like. Like, I realized that it wasn't, who'd they bring in to win the cup. But it was exciting. Yzerman pulled the trigger on a deal that Holland never would have done. Yzerman pulled the trigger. Both teams pulled the trigger on a deal that was mutually beneficial and not just one of those deadline rental player type deals. So it was cool to see. Just a really exciting week for Red Wings hockey. And honestly, we haven't had that in a very long time. So I am soaking it all in. You guys should too. Everybody watching should enjoy this past week because it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it.
For sure. Clearly, Pat is very excited about the Mantha deal, and I'm excited to talk about it, but we'll get there in a minute. Ian, how have you? What did you think of the Red Wings this past week?
I thought the Red Wings were terrific outside of the Nashville game, of course. The one thing I didn't like was coming into that weekend. I was trying to make an argument with my friends about Rod Brind'Amour getting some Jack Adams love, and then the Red Wings completely ruined any chance of that happening. But that's
that was you.
Yeah, that was me. That was me who was saying that. Yeah, that was me. And then the Red Wings ruined that. But I mean, could be worse, right? I know Dean's probably not thrilled with that either. Dean, who edits the show. But, all in all, who can complain with beating one of the league's best teams twice and then arguably winning the trade deadline on Monday? I got no complaints. All around great week from my perspective.
For sure. And to your point, the Rod Brind'Amour is still a good coach. Let's not.
Let's not
get away from that.
No,
but
that's it. 2 games. That's it.
Yeah. But the Hurricanes this season are very much the Canadians from last season. Of their 10, well, actually, I think a few of them. The one was in a shootout, so at least 3 of their 10 regulation losses, maybe 2 of them, I'd have to go back and look, were from the Red Wings. They've lost 4 times altogether against the Wings, and that's the most losses they've had against any singular opponent this season. Go on, Ian, sorry.
That's a little disrespectful, I think, comparing this year's Canadian, this year's Hurricanes to last year's Canadians. No offense, but I see where you're going with that. I see the connection you're trying to make.
Who?
I think we know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do want to quickly give a shout out to Adam Ernie for being a god at this point. He had the shootout clincher in that first game against exactly, yes. That first game against the Hurricanes, he scored the shootout winner. And there was that one play where he did like the spinorama. I don't think he scored on it, but he has such confidence going right now. He's doing crazy stuff. And we're talking about a 4th liner.
Just like we all thought at the beginning of the season, Adam Ernie coming out of nowhere with a spinorama, scoring a game winner in the shootout against the Hurricane, just like we all predicted.
Literally. I want to go back quickly and just to mention again, Ian, at the beginning of the season, you said just 1 more point than he did last season. He definitely Michael Jordan memed you and was like, I took that personally.
Yeah, literally. Like I see a post on a Grindline Twitter account of just like nobody, Adam Ernie. Like, I took him seriously. That's why I took him seriously. Yeah, exactly. What do I know?
The Grindline Twitter page, which you should absolutely follow. Before we talk about the topic that everyone wants to hear about, any final thoughts on the week that was in terms of on the ice? Either of you? All right, sounds good. We are going to move on to the trade deadline, and what a trade deadline it was. Ian kind of already mentioned it. The Wings started their trade deadline by moving Patrick Nemeth to the Colorado Avalanche. We had the opportunity to kind of briefly talk about that on last week's episode. And then the next move was they traded John Merrill to the Montreal Canadiens for a 5th-round pick and Pat Verbeek's kid. Gotta love nepotism. And then the third move they did was they brokered a trade between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Columbus Blue Jackets. They basically just took on some of David Savard's money and got themselves an extra 4th-round pick. And those were the deals that we were thinking we were just going to be talking about. We'd probably talk about them for about 5 minutes in total. And then, as has been alluded to, as the whole hockey world knows at this point, Steve Yzerman came out with a bomb and traded Anthony Mantha to the Washington Capitals for Jakub Vrana, Richard Panik, a 1st-round pick in the 2021 draft, and a 2nd-round pick in the 2022 draft.
Say it again. Say it again. Say it again.
Throw this out there. Another 1st-round pick in this year's draft. All right. I mean, we're bursting at the seams here. Let's talk about this darn trade. Ian, I want to start with you. How do you feel about the Mantha trade?
Oh, it's an A. Like it's an A plus. Like it's an awesome trade. I think we've all been talking about this leading up to the trade deadline, where if Mantha gets moved, it's going to be for a big deal, and that was the big deal we were expecting if he was going to get moved. That's what happened, and the thing that took me by surprise was that this deal, I think, almost took place, or at least the first details of it were announced at about 1 p.m. Pacific my time. Like in almost an hour, I think, after the actual deadline. And we know that deals trickle in after the deadline, of course, with the call-ins and et cetera. But that was what like took me by surprise, which is how late it was that it got announced. But A+ deal from my perspective.
And it was a total like shock to just the whole hockey world because the deadline was pretty quiet leading up into that point. And then, like you said, after the deadline had already passed, this comes out and it's like, oh wow, okay. Pat, what are your thoughts on this deal? I'm thinking that you like it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go on record and say, based on Ian's reaction to yours and mine declining the Mantha deal a few weeks ago, Ian would have taken this deal without the draft picks. So joke's on you, Ian, because Devin and I would have we were adamant that we'd hold out for a first rounder, and obviously Stevie gave us some love and is watching the show because he milked that for all it was worth.
Steve got more than I would have asked for.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely Steve Eisman. I don't know what I'm doing. I will humbly admit that.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
Just having a little fun with you.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, what more could you ask for? Literally everything is in there. You got Mantha and Vrana, which if you haven't read Tony Wolak's bit about Vrana, you should go check it out at thehockeywriters.com on the Red Wings page. It's awesome. And basically, it's a swap. It's given a couple of young kids another chance at a new beginning. Mantha was much maligned since getting here, whether fairly or unfairly is irrelevant. And Vrana's a year younger. So the Red Wings got younger in the process. They brought a first-round pick in Vrana, and then they got another first-round pick and a second-round pick next year in what looks to be a deep draft. So honestly, how can you not be excited about what happened this week?
Absolutely. And I do think it needs to be pointed out that with this deal, the Red Wings now have 5 picks through the first 2 rounds of the upcoming draft. That's going to be huge. And obviously, it's going to be on the Red Wings scouting department to get those picks right, because not often you get that kind of draft capital. Even in a draft that everyone's kind of confused about, that's a lot of bullets in the chamber.
Can I just
like
add,
Pat said,
can I just add, I think you both would agree with me. None of us are saying that Manta's a bad player. Like
absolutely.
I think like if Caps fans are watching this and are saying, "Oh, I wonder how the Red Wings guys feel about Anthony Mantha." Like, good player. He's gonna be, I think, a really good fit with that team. But I just wanted to stress that we don't think he's bad. It's just the return.
He already has 2 goals with the Capitals. I mean, he's already doing what they were hoping he was doing. I do want to say, I'm as much as I am through the roof about this deal, like both of us, or all 3 of us are. I'm gonna miss Mantha. I never thought he fully reached his potential in Detroit. Whose fault that is, we can debate. But there's a lot of talent there, and I'm really looking forward to him finally getting to show his stuff on a good team, and B, a team that has legitimate Stanley Cup aspirations. So good for you, Anthony. My other thing I want to throw out there just involving this deal is, to Pat's point, this deal very well could have just been Mantha for Vrana. And I honestly think that I like their respective fits with their new teams better than their former teams. Mantha is very much size and skill, and Vrana is very much speed and skill. And the Red Wings, I mean, their captain is Dylan Larkin. They're very much built on speed and skill. So, and Vrana scored in his season debut today. It's going on right now against the Blackhawks. So I have every reason to believe that he might really show well with the Red Wings. One more question I guess I have about this particular deal, and it pertains to Vrana. Pat, I'll start with you. So he's a restricted free agent at the end of this season.
Yep.
And obviously that means that the Red Wings retain his negotiating rights. So there is that. Do you see him as a long-term piece with the Red Wings?
At this point, I absolutely do. He's in the midst of his first game with the team. So you don't, but I don't think you swap out Mantha for Vrana when Mantha was clearly part of the team. He just signed a 4-year deal this past offseason without at least having plans to have him stick around for a little while. Depending on how things go, you don't know what the future is going to hold. And obviously Yzerman is somewhat unpredictable with the deals that he may make in a good way, but nobody's safe. And so you can't take anything for granted, but I absolutely think Vrana is part of this team's future.
Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Pat. I think he's a part of the future.
I think he's part of the future, but I also think that I think Yzerman acquired him with two thoughts in mind. One, this is a guy that if he does blend in the way that or mesh with the team the way that we're thinking he could, then yeah, he's a long-term piece. And if it doesn't work out, he's going to be a good trading asset. So if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you can still make it work by getting additional picks or additional assets. My final question for both of you pertaining to the Mantha deal is, what is your favorite part of this deal? I know for myself, my wish list item, I said it on the show before, I've said it on our written grind line. I wanted another first round pick in this year's draft, and this deal did it. So as much as I'm thrilled to see what Vrana can do, that first round pick sent me through the moon. So what about you, Ian? What is your kind of gem of this deal?
Yeah, it's probably the first round pick. Even in a draft where I don't know if even the experts really know what's going to happen, I would say it's the first round pick and just having another chance, another shot at possibly landing a superstar in this draft.
For sure. What about you, Pat?
So if the Caps lose in the first round pick will be much more attractive to me, as opposed to if they go and win the Stanley Cup. And I mean, no offense to Washington, that's purely a positional statement. But I will say my favorite part, I'm going to deviate a little bit, the second round pick next year. Ooh. Because it's how it's viewed. And everybody's like, the Red Wings fleeced the Capitals. No, they did not. I think this was a pretty even trade, because what you have to look at it like is basically two trades in one, right?
Yes.
You've got Vrana for Mantha and a first rounder. Then you've got what I think is Panik and a second rounder, because we're basically taking that second rounder, in my opinion, just like we did for Stahl with the Rangers, right? We're taking that money off the books. So this was not one deal. This was two deals in one transaction, and the creativity by both GMs to pull that off and think outside the box and really get a pretty even return. That's I like the creativity, and that's why I like the second rounder.
I can get behind that. I've seen that idea where it's kind of two trades in one out there, and I do agree with it. And I see the rationale behind it. When the deal first came out, I didn't necessarily think of it that way, but since then, it makes me like it more from Washington's end. At first, I thought this was heavily skewed towards Detroit.
Agreed.
And, now that I've had the time to think about it in that perspective, I do think it's a bit more even. And I do think at the end of the day, who wins this trade won't be decided until another probably 3 years from now when Mantha's deal is done. And it'll be determined by how he played with Washington and how Vrana and those picks turned out for Detroit.
Yep.
Any other thoughts out there on the Mantha trade?
Can I say one more thing really quick? Because
Yes.
we're talking about we're going to miss Mantha. Me too. Always liked the kid. Always felt bad for him from the very beginning when he broke his leg, when he probably had a shot to make the team out of camp his first year. But Washington fans, I'm talking to you right now. When Ovi gets hit and Mantha goes and he breaks his hand because he's fighting for Ovi, you will know what we have felt for the last 3 or 4 years. And that's the last thing I want to say about that.
That's a good period on that topic. We want to thank you for tuning in with us and listening to us talk about how giddy we are about the Mantha deal. If you are enjoying the show, please drop a like down there, depending on where you're watching, on Facebook or on YouTube. And be sure to check us out on YouTube. Check out our the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. We got a lot of content that comes out of there, whether it's news and rumors with Jim Parsons, whether it's the Hockey Writers Live with Mark Scheig, whether it's Saber Scoop, Saber Scoop, Blackhawks Banter. Wow. Maple Leafs Lounge, or our show, and many others. It's definitely worth a subscription or subscribe to the channel. And Ian, what is it that you always like to tell them that they're making if they're not subscribed to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel?
I like to say they're making a mistake because there's so much good stuff. It's pretty much it's like the Disney. No, it's like the Disney Plus of hockey is really what it is, with all the content and all the shows out there. I'm going to put it on that level. And hopefully with that plug, I can get back on here again soon.
That was a heck of a setup. That was a heck of pass, shoot, and score. We got cone heads right here. That's what we got.
That's called line chemistry. We are the grind line. All right. So I now want to return back to the trade deadline, but I'm going to zoom out the scope a little bit. We talked about the Red Wings, and obviously they are one of the winners, if not the winners of the trade deadline. I want to know, just first and foremost, overall thoughts on the deadline. We don't have to talk about who won quite yet, but I just want to know what you thought about the deadline. Like I said before, it was kind of quiet. But Pat, what were your thoughts on the deadline?
It's funny because you just let in this with it's kind of quiet, and my comment on it is I think it was a little noisier than people thought it was going to be. And not necessarily, it wasn't exciting. We didn't see many blockbuster deals. The Mantha was classified as a blockbuster depending on who you asked. Palmieri, Zajac was definitely, it kind of kicked everything off. And then I don't know. I've heard people call the Taylor Hall deal a blockbuster deal. I don't feel like it, but he was kind of the prized jewel of the trade deadline. So I'll give the benefit of the doubt there. Other than that, go check out the trade deadline page on the hockeywriters.com. A whole lot happened that you didn't hear anything about because it was third line defenseman for a fifth rounder. It was Nemeth for a fourth rounder, or whatever it was. So it was pretty ho-hum, but that said, I did think it was a little more active than some people expected it to be.
Ian, what were your thoughts on the trade deadline?
It was busier than I was expecting it to be, but I think also because some of the big deals didn't happen on Monday, i.e. the Taylor Hall deal happened on Sunday night. Palmieri Zajac trade happened Thursday, I think it was, and the Foligno deal happened. A lot of the big-ish deals happened before the actual trade deadline. But I still thought it was busier than I was expecting overall altogether as a whole.
For sure. Like I said, it was quiet. But I get what you guys are coming, or where you guys are coming from. Because once it got to like Saturday, right? That's when deals did start to come in. That's when that Palmieri trade came in. Basically, once the dominoes started to fall, they were falling. I guess, there weren't some of the big ones that people were talking about. I know I myself, kind of circling back to the Red Wings real quick. I was very shocked that Glendening did not get dealt. He was kind of the name that was out there. I figured if any Red Wing was getting dealt this at the deadline, it was going to be him.
Really?
And he's not the only one. I mean, once Bobby Ryan got taken out for the season, I figured that moved Glendening up, and I heard his name way too much to think that he wasn't going to get moved. But alas, he was.
I thought the only team that was going to trade for Glendening was the Edmonton Oilers because of the Holland effect, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
And I figured I figured that deal would have got done rather quickly because how many teams really want a Luke Glendening? No offense. No offense to Luke Glendening, but like they're a fourth line center. Like if that deal was going to get done, it would have got done last week. It wouldn't have got
I swear, Ian, I said that verbatim at some point before the Mantha deal was made, and someone was talking about Glendening being gone. I was like, "Yay, a fourth liner who can win faceoffs! Yay!"
And then,
I get the PK. I get the PK, right? I understand.
But I was going to say, Glendening had so little interest. The Leafs traded for Riley Nash, who is currently injured and on LTIR, and he's not going to come back until the playoffs. And the Leafs rather have that than Luke Glendening. And I don't know what Detroit was asking for, all the different moves, but I'm just saying that Toronto took a not healthy Riley Nash over a healthy Luke Glendening. That's why the Glendening wasn't surprising.
There's a little bit of an added benefit of trading for Riley Nash because you could gain LTIR space. But I see where you're coming from. Like I said, it seemed like we kept hearing about him. It seemed like
you're
at
right.
one point in time, every team in the league was looking at Luke Glendening. So for him to stay put, it was like, so who was lying? Because I figured that was going to get done. Or maybe it was just one of those situations where the Red Wings just view Glendening as more important to them than any other team views him. Maybe Detroit values him as a second round pick and no one else does.
You know what it is? Is that Yzerman is like, this Luke Glendening guy might be pretty good. And then all the other GMs are like, Luke Glendening, he's not on our list. And then it's like, no, this guy, you got to look at this guy, Luke Glendening. You'll be surprised.
I like it.
Somebody was scrolling through the stats on NHL.com. And they saw Luke Glendening at the top of the face-off, and they were like, "Oh, and he plays for Detroit. They're selling,
yeah, exactly."
I like it. I'd say I was most disappointed that Stahl didn't get traded, but only because of literally only because of the warm fuzzy that would have provided to think we got a second rounder. We got a serviceable defenseman for 3/4 of the season, and then we got another draft pick out of it. And that just would have been so satisfying.
No, for sure. And like you said on last week's show, even if it was the last pick in the draft, it would have been like, come on. So yeah, overall, the deadline, I mean, it definitely packed a punch for what it did have. Some big names did get moved. Some trades was not expecting. There was a lot of middle teams brokering deals, Twins being one of them. That's kind of the a lot of teams being against the cap right now. So with that being said, I do want to throw the question out there. Pat, you and I talked about this on last week's show. We kind of predicted who was going to win the deadline. If I'm not mistaken, you said the Islanders will have won the deadline. I said one of the Florida teams was going to win it. Panthers got Brandon Montour from the Sabres.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's
Sam Bennett
winning the deadline by any means.
Sam Bennett.
Yes, and Sam Bennett. To be fair to the Panthers, I liked that pickup, but I don't think that makes them win
over the
top.
Sam Bennett put them over the top of the winners.
They got the piece they needed. So the question is, who won the deadline, Pat? I want to start with you. Did the Islanders win the deadline?
Nope. The Islanders did well. The Red Wings won the trade deadline. The Detroit Red Wings won the trade deadline. There's an argument for Chicago, and Sean will not like me, but you know what? I didn't like his article very much. No, I'm kidding. It was a great article. I'm kidding. It was a great article. But it makes the point. You should go read it, that the Blackhawks undeniably won the deadline. And I disagree. I think the Red Wings won, but I think Chicago and Columbus, in my opinion, there are arguments to be made for both of those teams.
For sure. Ian, who do you think won the deadline?
I'm going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs hesitantly. I'm reluctant to say the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I will say the Maple Leafs. I know there's a lot of people who didn't like the Foligno deal and giving up a first for him. I don't really care. I think he's the type of player that they need. I think it doesn't matter, once they win the cup, if they are going to win the cup, then that deal just perfect. You won the cup. You did it for the first time in over 50 years. Like, who cares?
For sure.
Like that.
Nobody. That's not going to bother anybody in Toronto. What are you talking about?
Like I am a big.
Who cares?
I'm big in Toronto, but no, like I'd say that the Foligno deal. And the David Redick trade. I like the Redick trade. Like just adding goaltender depth. I thought that was a better deal than what Colorado did with Dubnyk. I would rather have Redick over Dubnyk. So I'm cool with that if I'm Toronto. And of course, I think Riley Nash is also a really good fourth line center for them. I think the Maple Leafs won the trade deadline overall.
So I liked what Toronto did. I liked what Dubas did. He identified what his team needed, and he went out and got it. So in that sense, I do have to give him his props. But I don't think Toronto won the deadline. I think that the Columbus Blue Jackets won the deadline. And it's because of one of their deals with Toronto. That is a team that kind of needs to just hit the reset button, but not completely clear the board, if that makes sense. I do think they have a lot of good things going for them, but this year it just wasn't going to happen for them. So I said this on Twitter. In terms of maximizing the value and return on their tradable assets, I think that the Blue Jackets did the best. They got 2 first-round picks, one from Toronto for Foligno and one from Tampa Bay for Savard. They now have 3 first-round picks. Now, the 2 that they acquired are from Tampa Bay and Toronto, so there's a very good chance that those are both in the final 4 low first-round picks. But the first-round picks, and you have options with those.
The thing about the Jackets I was going to say is that Foligno, I think, is coming back. All signs are pointing to Nick Foligno returning to Columbus too, which is the right thing to do. I think Foligno's a really good fit with the Blue Jackets and how they like to play currently. So I see where you're coming from there, Devin.
And that's exactly my point. Savard, I'm not sure he comes back, but I do think Foligno comes back, and you basically got a first-round pick to rent out your captain for a couple months. And I think that's a great deal for Columbus. I do think the Wings are really close behind, just knocking it out of the park with that Mantha deal. However, they did have a few other guys that I would have liked to have seen them moved. I talked about Glenn Denning. There are a couple other guys on the roster that even if you would have gotten a 6th-round pick, I just wanted them to, like Pat says, sell. And they kind of just sold. Columbus nailed it. Good on them. Good job, Yarmo. And I'm sure Mark, the host of Hockey Writers Live, was very, very pleased with the team he covers deadline. Now, our last topic of the night is going to be, now that the deadline is passed, we kind of more or less know what the Red Wings are going to look like this season or for the rest of the season. So the question is who/what are you looking for and looking forward to watching down the home stretch here? Ian, I want to start with you. Is there a particular player or is there maybe a storyline that you're looking for as we close out this season?
I've mentioned Toronto once already, so what's more hate? I'm going to say Jeff Carter in the Pittsburgh Penguins, because that's a really odd pairing. I did not see that coming. I'm not totally sure why Pittsburgh went out of their way to get Jeff Carter. Jeff Carter is somebody I have not thought about since the last time the Kings were in the playoffs. And now,
true story.
And now he's getting an opportunity to play with Crosby and Malkin. So
would be sick if it was 2012.
But that, and again, that's what we said about the Leafs too. Like when they signed Thornton and Simmons, and it was just like, oh wow, they're looking great in 2011, and it's just like, okay. But I mean, I'm interested, especially with that division too. That division got a whole lot better real quick.
Yes, it did.
So I don't know about excited is the right word, but I'm certainly intrigued to watch the Pittsburgh Penguins down the stretch.
Yeah, me too. That like you, I was not expecting to see Jeff Carter's name when the deals were coming out. Pat, who or what are you paying attention to down the stretch?
So, home front, right? I'm just really looking forward to seeing the Wings. I'm really looking forward. I think there's a real good chance before the end of the year we see Veleno in the fold and things like that, and seeing how he gels with some of these new acquisitions, e.g. Vrana specifically. I'm not as excited to see the Veleno Panik combination, so we're gonna go with Vrana there.
No, really?
I mean, I'll watch it. But seeing some of these guys come in and get some ice time for the first time, that's gonna give us all just a tease of what we may be able to see next year. And even if they're not good, they're gonna be. And I think time and time again, I think that's why we all feel so good after this trade deadline, because there's something good. There's something to feel good about. And really going to be keeping my eye right here on the home front to see what combinations happen quietly, what type of job Blashill's doing to finish out the year, to see what will drive those conversations with him and Yzerman in the offseason, and go from there. And then just purely out of, I love hockey and I watch every hockey game imaginable. I will be interested to see how the Islanders do. They are in win now. Yeah, so is Toronto. Toronto's very much in win now, and going to be looking forward to see how those two teams do down the stretch.
For sure. I'll do two things myself. One, I'm kind of watching Washington now. I want to see how Mantha does with his new team. I'm kind of in the boat of, I either want Washington to be bounced in the first round because I want a good draft pick, or I want them to win the cup because I want to see Mantha get it done. We'll see what happens. Then on the home front, two things. One, to Pat's point about Blashill. I thought it was interesting during Yzerman's post-deadline press conference that he said that he would get to Jeff Blashill's situation very quickly after the end of the season. He said very quickly. And that to me sounds like a decision is imminent. We're kind of just counting down the days on that front. I'm very curious to see whether he stays or goes. And then second, I kind of with what you said with Veleno, I'm just excited to see kind of the jockeying for position heading into next season. I'm kind of alluding to an article that I've kind of got in the got on deck here, but I think especially on defense, there's going to be a couple guys that are really not only playing for potentially a role on next year's team, but also for protection in the expansion draft.
Yes.
And I think that getting rid of Nemeth and Merrill, I mean, that opened up two spots on the blue line. So I think that it's going to be very interesting to see who plays, how much they play, and how well they play. All about seeing the younger faces on the wings, but I think we're going to start seeing hints of what is to come the next season.
Can I get in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have two last thoughts that I just have to get out there, and I'll make them very fast. Number one of the things we kind of missed, or we didn't miss, but I didn't mention, the other part about the Panik deal, the Mantha deal that I love with getting Panik, is there's an option there to expose someone to Seattle and not lose anyone in your core. And you have to think he won't be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he comes out and he scores 25 goals in the next 10 games, but unlikely. And I really like the added flexibility. even if you don't want him to go, you want to protect somebody else. And now you have the flexibility a little bit more to do that. So more wiggle room there, which I really liked. And then one more thing, mad props to the Red Wings penalty kill. We've been really hard on them all year. I don't know what they did tonight yet, but going into tonight's game, and this is stunning, they had killed off 26 of their last 28 penalties. And that is absolutely stunning coming from this group. They're still, just to highlight how bad they have been, they're still like 27th in the league.
Yep.
But, credit where credit is due. They've clearly been working on it, and I want to give some props there because I've especially been really hard on their special teams this year. So that's all. I just had to blurt that out while we still have Ian on the line here.
No, for sure. I feel like the penalty kill is kind of in their in that weird honeymoon stage that the power play was on after we had called them out, where all of a sudden they were scoring every game. The penalty kill is kind of on that run right now. Ian, any final thoughts just on the Red Wings before we start closing the show out?
I'd love to see them maybe go on a run and maybe, add a little bit of winning. When you, at the end of the year, when you want to feel good about something, you want to feel good heading into the offseason. I'd like to see a few wins, get some, big dubs. But, I mean,
for sure,
it's more just looking forward to the draft when that happens in July. I think they're trying to have
late July.
So kind of looking forward to that. That's kind of like the next big thing in the offseason.
Panik's 25 goals they're gonna help them finish.
Yeah, I mean, if you if you have the opportunity, draft Panik or get Panik in your fantasy hockey league right now.
Close the show now. Real quick before we close out, the Red Wings just defeated the Chicago Blackhawks 4-1. Very excited about that. Sorry, Brooke, Gail, Sean, and Greg. We took this one.
Right here.
There you go. That's only the Wings' second win against Chicago, so it's
true.
It's coming. Before we go, I want to give Ian the opportunity to kind of plug what he's been doing since he left us. Ian, what have you been up to?
So right now, the big thing I'm doing, I'm a digital media assistant with the Everett Silvertips. So I'm doing a lot of their social and website stuff on game day. So you can, if you follow Silvertips on game days, you can see a lot of my work and all the effort being put in there. I'm also a digital media manager. I think my title got bumped up this year, possibly digital media manager with the, I don't know if I can say that, but I just did, with the Western Lacrosse Association. We're hoping to get a LAC season out here in BC. So I got my summer pretty much planned there, booked there. You can also find myself at Speak Your Piece. Basically, I do a podcast wherever you find this, wherever you listen to this. YouTube, Spotify, you can see some of my blogs. Basically, go follow it. I can share, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I can share this links all there. And that's a lot of what I do. That's a lot. School's over, so pretty much that's what's consuming a lot of my time right now, outside of being my brother in FIFA on PlayStation. So, but you don't need to see that.
For sure. No, if you haven't, you should definitely go check out Ian over at Speak Your Piece. I listened to his most recent podcast and some great stuff. You should definitely support our fellow grinder here. We want to thank you for tuning in once again. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Like I said, be sure to wish Kyle a happy birthday down there.
Happy birthday, Kyle.
Yes, absolutely. And be sure to subscribe to the Hockey Writers on YouTube. Be sure to follow us over on Facebook. Like the Hockey Writers Grindline, THW Grindline on Twitter. And thank you for so much for tuning in. We'd love to see you next week. Thank you so much. Have a good night.